Awesome. So it's been like 2 months since I moved to Japan, more or less at this point. I thought I'd make an update video. Long overdue as well. I wanted to do one like pretty much immediately after arriving, but things have just been crazy and busy and a lot of fun. I was thinking to go through the kind of business aspects and the learnings from that, and then kind of move on to the more personal stuff afterwards. So let's get right into it. So only a week after arriving here, I participated in Tech Barbecue Sapporo, a spin-off event of the Danish tech event Tech Barbecue, which is typically hosted in Copenhagen. And this was the first one they had here, the inaugural Tech Barbecue Sapporo. It was a whole lot of fun, and I learned a lot about like Japanese business cultures that day. And also,
the winner of second match is Trip.com.
We should have met some.
won the pitch competition. Hooray! It was really cool. I pitched alongside some really cool companies, so like obviously really happy that we got to take home a win in that and get our name out there. In case you're wondering, I walked around with this obnoxious cardboard sign the entire evening. Like there was like an after party and stuff, so I was walking around the streets of Susukino with this thing. And it's a brilliant icebreaker having a big fat sign that says that you won something. That night ended with me eating ramen with a Japanese VC and another startup founder at like 4 in the morning in Susukino, where we queued in like negative 20 degrees Celsius weather for like this teeny little ramen shop with like 5 or 6 seats. And all the time I was lugging around this big obnoxious sign. So yeah, really fun day. Got to talk to some cool startups, meet some cool people, and kind of see the people both from the private sector and the startups and at a government level that comprise the ecosystem over here. And I think still that there's a ton of potential here. And yeah, that was just a lot of fun. And one other lesson to take away from that day is when doing business in Japan, business cards. This is the whole from that day from Tech Barbecue, and I think I got one of the smaller holes there. But if you're gonna want to do any kind of business or networking over here, get business cards made ahead of time. I had some made before coming here, and they appreciate both that you thought about it and also quickly look into like how the business card exchange typically goes down. It's not very complicated, but it's a big part of business culture here. So if you have the chance and the funds, then they're not that like expensive to have made, and they don't need to have a whole lot. Like the most basic ones literally just have like name, company, title, and that's it. We went a bit fancier with mine, but yeah, be sure to bring them. Another observation from like 2 months of having a company over here and kind of doing business here is you need to be prepared for things to take a little longer than you'd expect, especially in Western business. There's more processes and more hierarchy to take into account here. You kind of need to, if you want to collaborate with companies and like get in touch with them, there's ways to do that, and typically you start at the bottom of a very tall hierarchy, and then there's many layers of middle management that things need to go through before response comes back to you. And that can be a bit frustrating because as a startup, like time is of the essence, right? Like we're constantly racing against the established powers that be. But it is unfortunately the way it is. We'll say in Hokkaido and Sapporo, I've experienced it a bit less, and people up here and people from other regions that I've talked to say that Hokkaido is good in that regard. Like it is one of the more efficient prefectures in terms of those things. But still, be prepared for not only having to maneuver, but also respect some hierarchies that will slow down all the processes you're gonna be like a part of, especially in communication as well. Going from there, communication, the language barrier is also a thing, and that is unfortunately on you to fix, in my case on me, and I'm still working on it, and it's difficult, especially business Japanese is different gravy. Like say for an example, you send an email to a company you'd like to collaborate with. If you're sending it in English to a Japanese company, you'll be lucky if you even get like a response back, is my experience so far. Because again, I don't think it comes from any like hostility or whatsoever or not wanting to collaborate. I just think that because English is much less of a second language here than it typically is in the West, people will just like not know how to respond, like not understand your email completely and be worried about like responding in an inappropriate manner. And in that regard, if you can have a Japanese, either like be good at Japanese, get good, or have a Japanese person supporting you and like help you translate emails or help you make that initial contact. That'll get you far. Then the next step is you'll end up in like meetings where you also struggle to communicate, and that's where like getting like the best head start you can give yourself before moving here or doing business here is like actually learning Japanese. But it's a very easy thing to say and a very hard thing to do. So respecting the culture and the hierarchies and maneuvering the language barrier is all something I'm getting help with from Startup City Sapporo. And I would have already failed tremendously over here without them. The amount of attention and eyes they've gotten on our company, both from the industry and from the public, by setting out interviews and giving me stage time and mic time at like events and stuff like that, has been completely invaluable. And the same goes for their help with setting up meetings and translating things for me and just making sure that I can hit the ground running and don't have to run headfirst into like all of this paperwork, all of this bureaucracy and all these things that's very hard to maneuver as a foreigner, as an international that doesn't speak English, that doesn't speak Japanese. Yeah, I think that's the business summary so far. I owe a lot of thanks to Startup City Sapporo and the Hokkaido government for helping me this far. I feel like I'm at this point starting to be settled in enough that it's my time to like take this brilliant like setup they've made for me and all of this attention they've gotten for Trip.com and like run with it and produce something and start giving back to them and to Sapporo. If you want to read a kind of more comprehensive, more rambly summary of my first 5 weeks here, I've made an article with Startup City Sapporo where I've kind of written out like what are Trip.com's goals and ambitions here and why are we here and how has it been so far, and I'll link to that down below if I can. I do recall YouTube maybe blocking that. Either way, otherwise I'll float the name of the article like here, maybe, I don't know. But do check it out if you want like a more detailed summary of what has been going on over here with me and Trip.com and everything. So, the personal side of things. How has living in Japan been? Is it everything I hoped it would be? The short answer to that is yes. I really enjoy it over here. I have slowly settled into like an everyday life. Like I've got my room here that is not in a state where I want to show it off yet. I'm really enjoying living in a share house. I'm really enjoying living in Sapporo. It's an incredible city. The food is amazing and the Hokkaido people are very kind and very patient with some foreign dude trying his best to speak like the 5 words of Japanese that he knows. It's a high quality place to live. In a city like Sapporo, even if you're in Susukino or Odori, like the kind of city center area, you're so close to nature still. Like you can see mountains from Odori Park. So the distance between like real like chaotic metropolis city center, like the kind of vibe you'd get in a place like Osaka in Dotonbori or in Tokyo, and to like just pure untouched nature is so short. I personally really appreciate that coming from like the countryside of Denmark, that I can kind of have both, because I really love the city but I also really like being able to like go to nature and get a break and just breathe. So I'm loving it. What it's kind of given me even here like 2 months in, where the honeymoon phase is slowly fading out, is that I feel kind of a sense of adventure in my day-to-day life that I was kind of not missing, but way less present like back home. And obviously you're also responsible for like making every day an adventure yourself, but here like I still get psyched going to the combini, like hitting up Seicomart, and you got the Seicomart song blasting in the background, banger, and just seeing all these new products and things I don't know what is, or things that I don't have at home, or practicing my Japanese by reading labels and stuff like that. It's like even the most basic things here stimulate my kind of brain and sense of adventure more than when I was at home, and I'm really enjoying that, because as an entrepreneur or like working in a startup, you work a lot. And the hours can be rough and the work can be rough. That was also the case when I was living back home. But back home, once like I had a few hours to myself, it was kind of the same old. And I really appreciate that as a contributor, both to my like mental health and to my motivation as well, to like keep going with my startup. Because obviously what Trip.com can do is like bring more people to a place like Sapporo, like make them aware that it's not only here, but how easily you can get here, and even more so like Hokkaido, because people are fucking missing out here. Like If you ain't here and if you're not planning to like come visit, reevaluate. This place is incredible. On the flip side of like the kind of arriving in Japan, you have the aforementioned bureaucracy, like the amount of paperwork and setting up banks, registering address, getting a hanko, getting a phone number, and it can be a bit rough. And I even have like the support of like Japanese speaking people trying to enable me to succeed here and like help me like get settled in quickly. But even with that, it can be a bit rough. The biggest favor you can do to yourself is like learn some Japanese. If you're able to, before time, like prepare yourself for getting like both a Japanese phone number if you're gonna stay here for long, and also a hanko, then you will really set yourself up to succeed. Because all of these things will be barriers for entry to like getting a bank account and stuff like that. And all of these processes are long and troublesome, but you only make them more long and troublesome by going in unprepared, which I may or may not have done. Fortunately, it's all like resolved now, but still. Learning Japanese, I'm working on it. It's still hard. Funny thing is, like back home in Denmark, I was studying Japanese quite a lot more than I am now that I am in Japan. Obviously, I use it every day, but it's mainly like talking to konbini personnel, like, and once you know the script, then it's just kind of like onegai shimasu, ai, ie daishoubu, arigatou gozaimasu. So actually improving my Japanese has been a bit rough, but I have all the cards on my hand to do it. Like I live in a share house with like 50% more, actually I think, Japanese people that are mega nice and mega talkative. So I have every chance in the world to like learn Japanese by doing, which is to me the best way of learning a language. I've just been really bad at maintaining it, but I am working on it because I can tell that like I keep bumping into issues where I need to rely on other people to solve them because I don't speak Japanese, and that's not sustainable in the long run. So I'm trying to like hunker down and focus a bit more on like learning Japanese and getting good at it and getting competent at it. And finally, on my list of talking points here, food is incredible in this country. Like the food is so good. I love that I can afford to like go out to eat more frequently. Obviously not every day, but like eating out is kind of affordable here. Like obviously you can go to like very high-end places and then that changes, but the kind of mid-range and like discount both chain restaurants and like small lunch restaurants and such are of really high quality here. So there's always like an incredible meal for you to go buy for like 1,000 yen. Some places you can get like really nice lunch deals for like 750 yen, and even like the konbini food, like Lawson Sando, like a Lawson Katsu Tamago Sando, dude, that's like the best meal you'll have all day for 500 yen sorted. So I've been really happy with getting more Japanese food, but also being able to just afford eating out more and like going to experience the country that way, because I'm a big food guy. Like I travel for food, so to me that was a nice surprise that it's something I can do a bit more often than I could back home in Denmark. Obviously they also eat some things that we don't, at least where I'm from. Small things like how frequently I'm eating like raw egg over here. I wouldn't do that in Denmark, but here when I'm cooking for myself, there's really often like raw egg involved, and it's delicious and it's nice. The most probably unusual thing I've had over here so far, I guess, would be shirako. Now I knew what shirako was before I came here because it is kind of like infamous, and for those of you that don't know, shirako is essentially fish sperm sac. Exactly. So I had that served in an oden, and oden is kind of like it's a dish where you serve like various ingredients in like a nice broth. Usually it's ingredients that are good at sucking up kind of the broth and getting their flavor after the soup. It's a very nice winter dish. But I was at a decently fancy izakaya for a networking event. There was a round of oden served, and one of my friends over here served me up like just a bowl of oden, like just with all of the kind of like toppings. And I remember afterwards finding out that shirako was one of the things I ate, where I was like, huh. And obviously a big one, and one of the classic like, oh no, Japanese food is weird foods, natto. So natto is fermented soybeans. It's mega healthy, but it's also very smelly. I feel like that's one of the main things that have gone wrong in the natto marketing department. It smells very pungently, and it also has a slimy texture that I think you either kind of vibe with or kind of don't. I've had it twice, both times in pasta dishes, and to be fair, fried natto, if you fry it up and put it in like a rice dish or like a pasta dish, really nice, really good stuff. Your kitchen is gonna smell horrible, but your food is gonna taste phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, aside from some of the kind of weirder things and my tendency to like live off of konbini food because it's very easy and it's kind of yummy, but also it's probably not that healthy. The food here it's so good. Like especially Hokkaido and Sapporo has some amazing food like soup curry, miso ramen. Genghis Khan is also a classic. Like that's a mutton barbecue. The food here is just so good. If you were looking for a reason to come to Japan and especially Hokkaido, then like start with food and work from there because it is so good. And I guess that's kind of the rundown of the first couple of months. I'm really enjoying life here. From a business perspective, I have a really strong support network for trip.com and for me to succeed here as best as we can. Now it's my turn to like run with that and try to maximize that. And when I'm not working, I'm just adventuring in a country that I'd known I wanted to live in for a while. So I have no complaints. It's great. I can only encourage anyone that has this kind of same dream of like wanting to live here and also happen to have a startup. If you think that Japan can be a place where your startup can succeed or where it can maybe even be empowered by being here rather than where you are right now, try reaching out to Startup City Sapporo. Take a look at Hokkaido. We're brewing something really special up here, I think. I think the startup ecosystem is something unique and we're just getting started. Yeah, I think that'll be all for now. Janet.